Moon landing was faked. Humans never set foot on the moon. Heard all this before? Even after completing 50 years of Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin taking their first small steps on the lunar surface, conspiracy theories surrounding the moon landings are still prevailing. NASA's landmark achievement is still being challenged. Let's look at why people are saying the moon landings are faked and try to solve the conspiracies. This is a video series where we will be checking the conspiracy theories around us. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, please subscribe and like my video. Now let's get started. Conspiracy Theory 1. Shadows in the moon landing photos prove the images were faked. Take a look at this image. Did you notice anything odd? Look closely at the shadows cast by astronaut Neil Armstrong and another object just out of shot. What's wrong with them? Yes, they're not parallel. This image has been taken as proof by conspiracy theorists that the moon landings were faked. Surely if the sun were the only light source, then the shadows should be parallel. Doesn't this prove that the whole scene was mocked up in a studio with multiple light sources creating different shadow patterns? Well, scientists say that we could see this phenomenon ourselves on the Earth itself. Sometimes, because of the perspective, parallel lines appear to be non-parallel. If we are trying to reduce things onto a two-dimensional plane in a three-dimensional situation, we could see all sorts of weird things. Conspiracy Theory 2. Apollo astronauts could not have survived Earth's radiation field. Earth is surrounded by a zone of charged particles known as the Van Allen radiation belt. These are regions surrounding the Earth in our magnetic field where high-energy trapped particles from the sun tend to get confined. So how did the Apollo astronauts travel through the Van Allen radiation belt and out of Earth's orbit unharmed? Surely the amount of radiation would have killed them. Doesn't this prove that the moon landings were a hoax? The explanation NASA gives for this is, the transit time through the Van Allen radiation belt right at the beginning of the Apollo voyages was incredibly short. Traveling through the Van Allen radiation belt, if you're going fast enough through weaker radiation areas, is no problem whatsoever. It is like firewalking. Just cross the fire pit as soon as possible is the key. Leave the pit immediately before the thermal energy surpasses the thermal conductivity of our feet. Conspiracy Theory 3. Why are there no stars in pictures of the NASA moon landings? If the image really was taken on the moon, shouldn't the sky be filled with stars? After all, there is no atmosphere to distort the image, no clouds to interrupt that glorious view. Conspiracy theorists argue that the lack of stars in the Apollo 11 mission photographs prove that the event was staged. NASA could not have faked the full wonder of the lunar sky, and so they simply chose not to include any stars at all. The explanation that they gave for this is that both the astronauts and the lunar landscape itself are brightly lit by the sun. The sky may look black, but this image was taken in the daytime on the moon. If you're going to take a photo of a brightly lit scene, your camera's shutter speed needs to be fast and your aperture incredibly small. In that situation, faint objects like stars simply aren't going to show up. Conspiracy Theory 4. The Apollo 11 US flag is waving in the wind. But there's no wind on the moon. Buzz Aldrin saluting the proudly waving American flag on the moon remains one of the iconic images of the Apollo 11 mission. A declaration of US supremacy over space race rivals the Soviet Union. But if there is no atmosphere on the moon, there is no wind. So why is the flag waving? Looking again at the flag, we could see that a telescopic pole rod is extended along the top in order to make the flag fly. But since there is no atmosphere on the moon, the wavering flag can cause confusion in anybody's mind. Conspiracy Theory 5. If we really went to the moon in 1969, why have we never been back? Apollo 17, the last Apollo mission to land astronauts on the moon, took place in 1972. Since then, humans have never returned. Maybe that's because we never went to the moon in the first place. If man could land on the moon in the 1970s, why couldn't we travel now where today's technology is 100 times better than those days? They say that Apollo 17 wasn't meant to be the end of the story. Throughout the 1970s, there were ambitions to establish a permanent lunar base before turning to the next major space exploration challenge. But then, priorities changed to the Vietnam War and Mars exploration due to geopolitics. Once considered to be the paramount of human achievement and aspiration, the moon landing is also surrounded by these conspiracies. What do you guys think about the prestigious moon landing? Don't forget to comment your thoughts and subscribe to the channel.